You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, hosted by Steve Jenny and his satanic assistant, Alex Montini, both of whom can't go into churches without vomiting.
Nocturnal Frequency Radio with your hosts, Steve and Alex.
And welcome to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. And we're back. We're back. A fresh, brand new show. And a little something different tonight. We really have never dealt with... Well, we have dealt with Bigfoot before.
We've touched upon it, yes. We haven't delved into it.
We've had a few guests on in the past to talk about their variations of Bigfoot and everything else. But I've been thinking over the past few weeks, you know, I'd really like to sort of dive and have like a real dark discussions on Bigfoot, because you know, there's so many different ways of looking at Bigfoot, really.
Of course.
You know, everything.
It's like anything else.
Yeah, exactly. I mean that, you know, you have the paranormal, supernatural sort of standpoint, and then you have the anthropologic sort of standpoint. You know, like is this a creature that evolved, or is it a creature that might have been extinct, or we thought was extinct, or, you know, there's just so many different variations on how to look at this. So I was thinking, okay, well, you know, I know a few people that I've talked with over the years, and tonight's guest, Jami King, he's been researching Bigfoot for many years, and I've been following him. I think I first discovered Jami on Instagram years ago, and we just sort of talked, and all of a sudden, you know, we found each other on Facebook a few years ago, and I think I invited him on the show to come on the show before, but I don't think he was quite ready at the time. But he's all ready to come on tonight and sort of talk about his research. But he's also sort of led me down, you know, the path of some other people that like they're really hardcore researchers, and two of them that he's sort of pointed out are from Ontario.
Cool.
And they're both different in their approaches, and I'm sure he'll probably mention them on tonight's show, and sort of their sort of angle And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to bring on several different people who have a different angle on their research of Bigfoot, and sort of, I guess, analyze the common thread that it might, because I mean, obviously there's a common thread there. It's just, what is it? And what's the meaning of it? And there's so many questions about Bigfoot. Like, I mean, why can we not find Bigfoot, or at least what we think Bigfoot might be? I mean, what are your thoughts about Bigfoot?
I was listening to, watching rather, not listening to, but a YouTube channel that it's almost like a debunking channel for quote unquote flat earthers.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
One of the topics that also came up, aside from the flat earth belief, is the things like Bigfoot and the paranormal and what have you. One of the things that the guy posed was, if Bigfoot existed, why haven't we found any sort of remains? Exactly. So aside from actually capturing the creature itself, why hasn't anybody discovered any remains of Bigfoot, or whatever you want to call them, Yeti, or whatever the case may be? Which is also in and of itself a pretty intriguing statement, because if you think about it, it does make sense. If this creature does exist in this reality, why haven't we found any remains?
Or any, live creature, and it's funny because you always hear, people who come forward with some footage or whatever, and it's always blurry.
Yeah.
It's never really that great. It's in this day and age with the technology that we're dealing with, especially even with camera phones now. Exactly. I mean, with cell phones.
Yeah.
The cameras in them are just incredible.
Yeah.
But
I will say this, though, even with camera phones, and primarily with camera phones, with, SLR cameras, DSLR cameras, it's a little bit faster. But the focusing mechanism in cameras isn't as quick. So if you're trying to take a picture of someone that's moving or running, mm-hmm. you're going to get somewhat of a blurry shot. Your phone is just not going to be able to keep up. Whereas a DSLR will have a better focusing mechanism. It's much, much quicker, and you have a better chance of getting it with a DSLR than with a camera phone. However, that being said, again, when you're trying to take a picture of anything that's moving, especially if you're in the forest and there's very little light, even a DSLR camera will have hard time focusing properly on the subject that you intend to focus on.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, well, when you're saying low light too, but I mean, these creatures have apparently, for the majority, have been spotted during the day.
Oh, they have, yeah. But when you're in the forest, mm-hmm. the trees block out a lot of the natural light.
Sure.
So you're not getting a very bright subject, for lack of a better term, right? So you couple that with the fact that it may be running away, mm-hmm. and you're trying to get the camera to focus. If you have your camera set up on the wrong setting and you have it on multi-point focus, it may not focus on what you intend to focus on. It may focus on something else and still have the subject that you intend to take a picture of as blurry.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So there's many different factors. I mean, even professional photographers, if you're trying to get them to take a picture of a moving object, unless they have their camera on a tripod and on timer, it's very difficult.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's that's the thing. And even with the HD cameras out now, with the resolution and the stop motion and the what is it? The F motion now that a lot of the cameras have. Really, they can handle the fast motion, man. They can handle it, but yet still, I think a lot of the research that deals with the evening or night is the sounds that these Bigfoot make. And there's plenty of stories of these creatures throwing stones at you.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
and you know, you could go and make this noise, and the thing would sort of answer. You know, think about being in the. You know, there's nothing I like more than being in the forest at night, and doing this sort of thing, man. It's just there's such a high, I think, and it's been such a long time since I've done it. But just imagine being in the middle of a forest, and all of a sudden you hear this blood-curdling howl. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, what would you think? I mean, what would your first reaction be?
To run like hell.
Exactly, right? But, you know, I remember a long time ago when we were investigating, what was it? The Forest Pioneer Cemetery. And I remember we were up there one night, and we had heard, and I've got the recording somewhere. I don't know where I've got it, but I've got it somewhere in the annal, somewhere. And what we heard was this, like, growl in the distance. It was so loud. And we couldn't understand what it was. When I played it back, and I'm like, what the hell could that possibly be? You know, it was just blood curdling.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know, but anyways, so you know, okay. So anyways, you know, when we come back from break, we're going to bring our guest on, Bigfoot researcher from Pennsylvania, Jami King will be joining us. In the meantime, so what's new, dude?
Nothing. I can't go breaking tradition.
No, you can't. I mean, we wouldn't want you to do that, man. So, I mean, how's the burrito hunting going?
It's very dry.
Tell me about it, eh?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that will, you know, come back to life soon. I mean, you know, now they're talking about returning within stages to some sort of normality, semi-normality, if you will.
Yeah.
And, you know, they slowly open things back up and seeing how things go. So hopefully that works out, and we can sort of get back to, you know, routine, if you will.
I'm completely okay with working from home.
I wish I could work from home, man. I really would. I prefer to, but unfortunately I can't. But it'd be nice. I'm looking forward to having this week off. So, you know, getting stuff done around the house, and, you know, getting some projects finished that I've been, you know, sort of going, wow, hey, look at, I've got to finish this, you know, soon, but hopefully this week. Yeah. So anyways, what else? You know, what else you've been up to? But you know, there's not much you can do. But any shows you've been watching?
Lately, I've just been watching a lot of YouTube videos. I go back and forth, right? I mean, there was a point there where I've watched so many shows on Prime, and
yeah,
it just got to a point where it's like, okay, I need to change the scenery, sort of thing, right? Because I was getting really. I don't know what the term is, but it was one of those things where you're just getting tired of doing it.
Yeah.
So I changed it up and started watching YouTube again and watching some videos and some flat earth debunking and all that kind of stuff, because it's always funny.
Yeah, it's amazing, this stuff on YouTube, and
it is.
I gotta stay off TikTok.
I deleted the app.
It just amazes me, the stuff that people upload for people to watch, and the amount of viewers that watch the stupidity. It's like, you know, you could literally throw up anything and it will garner like thousands of views.
Especially now. I mean, everybody's got so much time, you know, because they have to stay at home.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, with how things are, it's amazing though to see people who use a format like TikTok and use and the creativity. There's some real creative stuff that people have put up there.
For sure.
You know, and those are the ones that I really enjoy watching. I was like, wow, you know, like this is, it's so simple, but yet nobody thought about it until now, sort of thing. So it's really cool. But anyways, look, we're going to take a short break here. If you'd like to follow us, you can do so on Twitter at Dark Discussions. Facebook is www.facebook.com/Nocturnal Frequency Radio. And our Instagram page is Nocturnal Frequency Radio. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, our guest this evening is Bigfoot researcher from Pennsylvania, Jami King. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. We'll be right back.
So let me ask you, what makes for good radio?
My 5 favorite songs, all day long.
Play it again.
No.
As many commercials as physically possible.
What? No, why would that be good?
Great music, great talk shows, no commercials.
Precisely. New Visions Radio gives you no commercials, no nonsense, just the best new music and the best talk all day long, 24/7, 365. NewVisionsRadio.com.
This is Keith Age, and you're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio. Enjoy.
Because of the obvious threat to untold numbers of citizens due to the crisis that is even now developing, this radio station will remain on the air day and night. This station and hundreds of other radio and TV stations throughout this part of the country are pooling their resources through an emergency network hookup to keep you informed of all developments. At this hour, we repeat, these are the facts as we know them. There is an epidemic of mass murder being committed by a virtual army of unidentified assassins. The murders are taking place in villages and cities, and rural homes and suburbs with no apparent pattern nor reason for the slayings. It seems to be a sudden general explosion of mass homicide.
And welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. So Alex, let me ask you your sort of what do you think Bigfoot is? Is it sort of a supernatural sort of thing, or is it a physical? What do you think? What are your beliefs?
I don't really have any solid beliefs in the Bigfoot, only because I've never really researched it long enough. But I know I've mentioned this in the past in the show, where I believe one of the possibilities is that it's an interdimensional being that has the ability to go in and out of our reality, for that term. So saying it's a physical being, yes, it is a physical being, but not one from this sort of reality, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, it's and it makes sense. It does. It really does. We're not going to waste any time here. We're going to bring in our guest, and you know what? I want to welcome Jami King to the show. Welcome, Jami.
Hey, thank you for having me.
And we had a good chat a couple weeks ago. Like I said, we've sort of followed each other for quite a while now. I mean, it's a few years, anyways. And what has always intrigued me about, because I think it was Instagram, right?
It's Instagram, yeah.
Yeah, and I was always amazed at the pictures that you used to post, and you're always always on a hike and finding these interesting things, and bang, I find out you were really into Bigfoot and all that kind of stuff. So that was pretty neat. But for the listeners, I guess just sort of go into why Bigfoot. What got you started in your adventure or your travels into trying to learn more about Bigfoot?
Well, I guess I would say that Bigfoot sort of kind of found me in a way.
Okay.
My father lived with my wife and I for a year. He had bone cancer, and he passed away, and I went into this funk. my whole personality changed, and my wife kind of described it as the Pink Floyd The Wall video, where there's a guy sitting in a chair, and he was just devoid of himself. But I remember she said, you know, you need to get back to who you were, Jamie. And we went on this hike, and it's at a place in Pennsylvania, Shenango Reservoir. And I remember I went on this hike, and I said a prayer. I said, Dad, if you're here, give me a sign that you're here. And, you know, we did the hike, and we started hiking down this trail. And it was my wife and I, and we had our beagle with us. And I remember we got to the lower part of this ravine, and where the water meets, like there's a creek that feeds into this ravine and then into a big lake. And we were standing there, and my dog started acting really bizarre. And I remember I picked my dog up because I thought something had happened to her, like she stepped on a thorn or something. As soon as I picked her up, we had this vocalization in front of us. Like it was this loud, ongoing, just thunderous loud. You could feel it in your chest. You could feel it throughout your body. And I remember looking down at the ground, and I saw the ground ripple, like there was a puddle on the ground. And I remember thinking that my very first thought was, this is like something prehistoric, the way it was so loud. It sounded like a primate, dinosaur type thing. And then my wife and I just stood there, and we looked at each other. We weren't saying anything, and we were watching trees in front of us, like maybe 50 feet in front of us, just moving really violently. And we didn't say anything, but we both looked at each other, and we made this turn, and I'm carrying my dog, and we started hiking out just immediately, not really looking around, just hiking out as fast as we could. And we could hear this thing, and it sounded like it was on both sides of us. It was just loud, guttural, just like long out, drawn out, like more than like human capacity or any kind of animal that I've ever heard. And we made it back to our vehicle, and we didn't say anything. We got all the way home, and that's when we kind of like broke down, and we both said, what did we experience? Like we kept asking each other, what was that? You know, like we grew up in Pennsylvania. We knew the sounds that were around us. And, you know, we started looking into vocalizations online, and we kept putting in different things. Nothing matched. Then our friend told us, why don't you put in Bigfoot vocalization? We put in a Bigfoot vocalization, and this recording from a place called Wellsville, Ohio, came up, and it was identical to what we heard. But this Wellsville, Ohio recording was called the Ohio Howl. You can look it up. And it matched identical to what we heard. So then I guess I would say like the following days afterwards, you dissect it over and over in your mind. And I remember driving to work, and I remember it was like my dad's voice came into my head that said, Jamie, if you want to find the answer, go back to the beginning. So in my mind, I went back to the beginning of the trail, and at the beginning of the trail, I said this prayer, Dad, if you're here, give me a sign. And I remembered the very last memory I had with my dad was he was outside, and he wanted to look at the trees and look at the birds, and he said, take me in the house. He said, I just want to go in the house. So I brought him in the house, and I remember I put a movie in. My sister from Maryland gave me a stack of movies. So this movie that I put in the DVD player was Harry and the Hendersons. And that's when it hit me, like, there's something more to this whole experience that was, like, I couldn't piece it together. And it just went from there. And, I mean, maybe, like, a little bit of time went by, and we decided we were going back to the same location with our friend Roger, who's in the Fish and Game and Wildlife. And we took him to the location, and on our way back out, we heard what sounded like a man talking. Then we heard what sounded like a dog bark and a whistle, and we had our dogs with us. So I told my wife, put them on the leash because I don't know what kind of dog is going to come out. Nothing came out of the wood line where we were, and I remember we walked over to the edge of this ravine, and we looked down, and I saw this thing stand straight up. I could see it from behind, and it ran as fast as it could away from us. So then we went down into this ravine, and I remember going down in there, and it was really, really thick, so it's not something that you could move through easily. And I mean, at that point, I realized I saw something physical, but then I realized what we experienced was also very spiritual, and that's where sort of my research took this weird turn in that now I understood that, like, not everything that we think we know, we do know.
So go into that first experience a little bit more. Go into detail.
Yeah. Jenny, do you want to add some detail? My wife is here, and she had the experience with me. I mean, she
absolutely. Hi, Jenny.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Good. How about you?
Oh, I'm good. Yeah, like Jamie was saying, when we, hiked down there with Harley the first time, she's always out in the lead, never afraid of anything. And like Jamie was saying, she was scared of something, and she's never like that. And that kind of spooked us, but, because we were like, what? She's never afraid of anything. And that's when, Jamie picked her up, and, that was kind of like interesting to us because, Harley was never afraid of anything. And then when we heard the vocalization, like Jamie said, you actually could feel it in your body. It was so loud, you could actually feel it. Wow. And that's what kind of shook me, that you could actually feel it. And, we were just like, what the heck was that? Like, it was pretty crazy. And
I just listened to it, actually.
Yeah, like, when you hear the Ohio howl, it's like you have to magnify that, like, I don't know how many times to actually hear what we heard, but yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, when Roger and Jamie, the second time, it was Roger and Jamie that actually had a visual, because I was with the dog, so I didn't actually see anything, but yeah, I didn't get to experience that. But I did hear, the man's voice and the whistle, and like it would sound like a dog bark.
It must have been so intense to experience something like that.
Yes.
I mean, the intensity of it was that it was so loud that you really truly could feel it in your body.
Yeah.
But more than that, it was almost like a wall of sound, like a vibrational frequency, which, I mean, that kind of plays into my research a lot more later on, where I start thinking more like on a paranormal spiritual level, like Native Americans believe, the power of thought, like the power of prayer. And like, to me, it would be disingenuous to ignore that part of my experience that I said a prayer. So it took on this weird change for me, and it changed everything about me and how I look at everything now.
And we'll get into that, because you and I we talked a lot about that when we had our chat there a few weeks ago, and how frequency plays such a huge part of this, and diving into infrasound and stuff like that. It's just amazing how when you told me about that, your sort of approach, it sort of rang true, and I wholeheartedly sort of understand your approach with this, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you.
So
it is very spiritual.
So you have this experience with Bigfoot. How does it change your approach now, or how does it sort of further your interest in wanting to know more?
Well, for myself, I can't speak for Jenny, but for myself, it would be very disingenuous to not think about the other part of that research, which was, like, I was really asking for a sign from my dad that he was there.
Yeah.
And I know that I dissected it over and over in my mind, and then I realized what you have to do is you have to break it down, try to rationalize it as much as you can. And Jenny and I came to this agreement that if we're going to find answers to what we experienced, we're going to have to do it on a micro level. Like, you think of Bigfoot, and you think of Bigfoot being in, like, the Pacific Northwest, or in, the great north of Canada. You don't think of it so much in, the continental United States.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't. So I really started saying, I'm going to do this on a micro level, but then this micro level, I'm looking for something very large like Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
I started looking inward. Like, I started thinking, why did I have this experience? And then why did this encounter happen to me? And I realized then that I started researching the power of thought and the power of prayer. So then it became this journey of like, I'm realizing that there's laws of attraction in this world. And that's where I started doing my research online too, where the power of thought, the power of prayer. And it took me to different places that, you know, like I think there's a quantum reality that we don't realize exists until you have an experience like this. And then you realize there's more out there that you don't understand. So
absolutely,
our research took a direction that turn.
I mean, I don't know. That's a key point. I mean, when you say a quantum reality, a reality that most people don't sort of realize, and you know, it's funny. We have talked so much about that, Alex, on the show. About I don't want to say an alternative reality when it's, I don't know if I believe it to be an alternative reality, but I think it is a part of a reality period. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, we know so little about it. We can't discount anything. But when we came back from break, Jamie, I want to get your thoughts on what I said about the potential of Bigfoot being, excuse me, being an interdimensional being. Is that a possibility?
That's a possibility. I mean, I wouldn't use that exact word, but yeah, we'll talk about that.
The only reason why I say this, because someone I watched on YouTube made a pretty good point in saying that if and this is obviously coming from a skeptical point of view from this website or from this YouTube video, but if Bigfoot does exist, surely by now we would have been able to find some kind of proof, like skeletal remains or any of that ilk.
I would agree, yeah. I would agree with that, yeah. I mean, the most responsible approach is to look at it in every single angle that you possibly can and use the most rational thinking that you can.
Right.
So with what you have sort of researched, if you will, or sort of looked into, investigated, or whatever, what sort of findings outside of audio or visual on possible Bigfoot, I don't want to say sightings, but something that you might have come across that might indicate that this creature or these creatures might exist?
Well, for myself, I would say the structures that we find, and we found prints, like actual prints in the ground.
Oh, wow.
Which is an impression from something. Yeah, we found those, and the structures that we find, I've actually done a lot of research, and it took me to a researcher in Ontario, and her name is Leanne Carnegie, and she's been finding almost identical structures to what I've been finding, and I really appreciate the work that she puts out there, because really, if you're putting a puzzle together on Bigfoot, it's a huge mystery, it's a phenomenon. And when you start adding things together and you start looking at patterns, that's when you start finding answers to what you need to look at. And her research took me in that direction, where I was finding things almost identical. And the same thing with Mike Patterson. Like, he's a well-known researcher in Ontario, and I believe he's had his own journey that is a little bit different than most Bigfoot researchers, but what he's experienced resonated with me with the audio, for sure.
So these structures, go into these structures that you're mentioning.
Well, the structures themselves, people claim that they're used as directional markers, or that they're not so much a shelter that they would live in, but maybe have a language or a meaning to them, or they call them glyphs, like things on the ground that they find, and their patterns. And there's lots of researchers in North America and even Europe, like in Siberia, there's Igor Burtsev, and he is researching these similar structures that they're finding all over the world where people have had Bigfoot encounters. And they're basically like, I would consider them almost to be like a Native American structure, like a wigwam or something like that, but they're usually have a similar structure, like they'll have a spine to it, which the researchers are giving these things different names, but they call it a spine. And basically it's a tree that's bent over, and then there's other trees and stuff intertwined into it, almost like braiding. And it's just super interesting to look at. And you can look at it and you can say, that's not normal tree fall, or that's not something that fell because of the weather. It's something that was created, and, like created by something human, I don't know. But a lot of it looks like bushcraft type things, but even that doesn't make sense because it's not used as a shelter.
So they call them spines?
Well, I kind of labeled them spines, and then a few other people started giving them names too, like very similar. Like Leanne has different names, and I don't know specifically all the names she has for the way they're designed, but they have a design structure with, like, I call it a spine. Some people call them push pins, like these things that will be around them, like they're structures, and then there's trees that are jammed into the ground around it, and they call it a push pin. And a lot of researchers are finding different things near the shelters that become a pattern, like blue items or mylar balloons that they find. And it's just super interesting. I mean, I don't know that there's a relation to Bigfoot, but I'm seeing the area that I have researched in on a micro level, I'm finding these structures, and I'm currently watching at least 12 of them now.
12 sites?
Yeah.
Wow. And what kind of activity have you noticed at these sites, if any?
Jenny, do you want to talk about, like, anything that you've noticed?
Well, some of them we've been watching for several years now,
Mm-hmm.
and of course they decay, because of weather and because they've been out there so long. And some of them are new and fresh, and some of them are shaped differently. Like Jamie said, they have the spine, which means like there's maybe a bigger tree, even that's like part of a whole tree that's in the middle, and then they have the pieces of wood that are stacked alongside each side of them. And some of them are more like a teepee structure.
And they're usually found near water, like if there's a water area. And we found, the largest one we found was at least 50 feet tall. So it's like 50 feet tall, and it's usually a tree that's already fallen, but other trees are brought into it. And we found trees that have been, and apes and primates do the same thing. They build these structures in these nests. So, on a physical level, they can be compared to something that a primate could make.
So teepee. So what do you mean teepee? Some of them are like teepee-like.
Well, maybe you have a different word in Canada, but like teepee is like something that the Native Americans or indigenous peoples would create to live in, and they're usually in the shape of a hat, like.
Yeah, we have this. It's the same terminology. That's what I was kind of wondering, because it's funny. I've seen structures like that when I've gone out on a few hikes and whatnot, teepee-like structures. But I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe did I see one? That's what I was kind of asking. Exactly what do you mean by the teepees?
Yeah, and the interesting thing is a lot of these places that they're being found are not necessarily always like 4 miles or 5 miles into a wooded area. Sometimes they're along trails, and they're assuming that Bigfoot or Sasquatch is an observer of human behavior.
Just a quick question. Those sites that you said you've been keeping an eye on for a couple of years, have you noticed any change in them, aside from obviously erosion from weather? But I mean, have the structures changed at all since you've been monitoring them?
Yes, they have. On few occasions, we found some things that were added to them or taken away from them. And a lot of times you'll find really odd things that will show up at the location. Like you'll find bones, like animal bones that will be intertwined into the tree itself or near it. And, like I take a lot of notes because like when I'm out in the woods, I make sure I always keep a notebook with me. And I sometimes will count how many tree branches are used in a structure, and I'll write it down and I'll draw it. And I have like notebooks full of this kind of stuff. So I do know the differences, like if there's something taken away or added.
So maybe you're right in your assessment that this is some form of communication. Maybe it's different ones that are changing the structure to convey some kind of message.
Yes. Yeah. Like maybe they're not in this area at this moment, or they've moved on. And I've seen structures that were there and then completely demolished maybe like a week later, like something completely tore it down.
Mm. Okay. There was something else I wanted to ask you. As far as your recordings, have you, like, I know I listened to the Ohio Howl while Steve and you guys were talking, and it's pretty creepy, but are you able to distinguish any sort of difference between one to another? Like, say, for example, there's multiple Bigfoot that you're dealing with. Is there some kind of distinction? Can you tell if there's a distinction?
There's different.
So there's howls, and then there's whoops.
Whoops.
Yeah, like Jenny, a whoop is like a different. It probably means something different. I mean, if I had a Sasquatch here to ask them, I would ask them. But we're assuming, it's all assumption, that we think that, like we know maybe what they might mean, but not really. It may be like warning signs, or, it's all different. But I mean, and knocks could mean something different. But that's all like all assumption at this point. But we do hear the different vocalizations, like the whoops. People here have heard growls. We've heard long, the Ohio Howl is very, very typical for this area. But like my recordings, like I don't know if you listen to the recordings, but I did my recordings with a group of people that were primarily interested in finding a physical Bigfoot, where I wanted to communicate on a spiritual level, thinking more on a paranormal level, and I got responses.
On a recorder.
On a recorder.
Well, let's get into the paranormal aspect of this, Jamie. And I guess sort of clarify it for the listeners. What do you mean by paranormal? What do you mean? You think Bigfoot could be like a paranormal phenomenon, if you will?
Kind of like ghost hunting, when you have a recorder and you ask a question and you don't actually hear it while you're recording, but when you play it back, you hear it.
So it's basically like what Jenny's trying to say is maybe communicate on an infrasound level.
And that's something that you and I discussed, Jamie, because some of the research that I've done over the years is infrasound and its connection to the phenomena of electric voice phenomena. And, most people would automatically say it has something to do with communication with the dead. I don't know if I'm so much on that proponent, but a proponent of that. But I do believe there's something going on. I wholeheartedly believe that. And when you sort of apply it to something like Bigfoot, now my ears perk. I want to know more.
Yeah, I want to know more.
Because a bulk of the, and I hate saying evidence. I'm just that type of person. I like to say findings.
Sure.
Have been within that realm. EVP, if you will, but infrasound and frequency have always been something that have, intrigued me, and I always thought, well, look it, this is something that we really, really need to dive more into, because from what I can understand and what I've witnessed and researched, this realm seems to have it all.
Yeah. I mean, I think that as humans, we have these conditions of our senses of what we're capable of, like seeing or hearing or tasting, and I think that our senses are more aligned with the laws of nature, And there are things outside of our nature that we don't understand. And that's where my mind goes a lot. And I take it to the approach of the laws of attraction and all of that stuff that, you know, is outside of it. And you think about alternate realities or realities in general. Think about ourselves. Think about each person that you meet on a daily basis. They're a different reality than we are. You know, we don't know what they're capable of. There are people out there in this universe that have super psi type realities, that they can move things with their mind. There are people that can probably start fires with their mind. And, you know, like the Buddhists believe in all of that. Like, that's what I'm intrigued by, all of that. Like, you know that there are senses that are outside of our own. And maybe the day that I had my encounter, I think to myself, you know, like I was trying to communicate with my dad in a prayer or a thought. And that thought is an energy that goes somewhere, and it's a frequency that goes somewhere. And you think of yourself as like a transmitter and a receiver, like that.
What do you think, though, Jamie, and well, I'll ask Jenny as well. Like, you know, the fact that, you know, that we as being animals as well, that have been domesticated over the years, obviously, the fact that we too had that ability, and we just lost it obviously through the generations. But some might have been able to say, you know, keep it, if you will, or have harnessed it, or learned how to tap back into it. And
yeah.
What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, I think that's true, yes. But I think everybody has that ability.
I think we have untapped abilities for sure as humans. If you sit and practice or you meditate, you're entering a different state of mind too. You know, I don't really know the answer for sure, but I do know that we emit a frequency as humans that is the same as the Earth. You know, and if something's in tune with something, you're going to receive what you're looking for.
Well, I've been a huge proponent in saying that, or even thinking that, you know, energy. We're made up of energy, and our energy is in tune with the frequencies around us. And when there's a disruption in that frequency around us, obviously it disrupts our frequency. So I wholeheartedly buy into that sort of theory, if you will.
You know, and this whole research has taken me in the direction of consciousness, and how consciousness is sort of a final frontier that we don't really know a whole lot about.
You know, Alex, something tells me we should have brought Justin on too, because I think when we start talking about consciousness, Jamie, you'd really enjoy Justin.
You
as
would,
well.
yeah.
Well, but we're going to take our halfway break here, Jamie.
Sure.
But we're going to dive more into your experiences and your research with Bigfoot, and Jenny's yours as well. So hold tight. We're going to take a short break here. When we come back, more on Bigfoot. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network, and we'll be right back.
Beyond, the television series that redefines the paranormal. Academic, scientific, and medical opinions that, combined with expert testimony, provide new insight into 48 phenomena that challenge the frontiers of human understanding. The Beyond series was originally broadcast on television in Canada and the USA. Now the series is available throughout the world on Hulu, Amazon, and TV Tibi. In Canada, it can be seen through Amazon On Demand. Come with us and take a step into the unknown lands that lie beyond. More information at beyondtheseries.com.
You are listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, hosted by Steve, Jenny, and its satanic assistant, Alex Rondini, both of whom can't go into churches without vomiting.
And welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. And in case you didn't catch us in the first hour,
what's wrong with you?
Exactly. We're talking Bigfoot, and we've got Bigfoot researcher Jami King on, and his wife Jenny. Guys, welcome back.
Hey, thank you.
Hi,
everyone.
And you know, it's been a long time coming. Like I said, I mentioned to Jenny there when you were gone that it's been a long time since I know we've been sort of following each other on or not Facebook but Instagram, and we were hoping to catch up and bring you on the show earlier, but finally to have you on, it's been great, and I want to thank you guys for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I'm sorry I didn't come on the first time. I was just not really prepared to talk about Bigfoot.
Oh, no problem at all. It's hey, if you're ready or you're not, it's no big deal. It's just, hey, it's great to have you tonight, though. So okay, let's dive more into the Bigfoot stuff. Now, let's sort of talk a little bit more about your sort of research with the frequency and the infrasound and how it might pertain to the possibility of this creature and its existence really in this realm.
I mean, when you think about infrasound, you know that animals communicate in infrasound. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, I was in the Allegheny National Forest in Pennsylvania, and I was with a group of people that primarily think of it as a primate that's undocumented, or not undocumented like a immigrant, but it's not documented as a species. So I was there, and we were having encounters throughout the weeks that we had been going there. And it just, the one day I felt like pulling out my recorder. It's a Panasonic DR60, which people use in ghost hunting. And I just went to this dark part of the forest where the sky opened up and you could see sort of the Milky Way. It was just beautiful skies. And I remember that night we kept hearing something behind our base camp. And I pulled out the recorder, and I had my one friend Scott was with me, and his daughter, she was 8 years old. And I started asking questions. Like I said, can you tell me the name of this forest? And, I was asking intelligent questions to see if I would get an intelligent response. And I truly did get a response where it said the name of the forest. And I didn't hear it with my ear, but I heard it on the recorder afterwards. So then I started realizing, this is seriously what they call in the universe dark matter or dark energy. I don't know for sure that I'm communicating with Sasquatch or Bigfoot, but I do know that the activity that we had during the day would suggest that something large was there. And at night we had more activity. And the more I kept researching and I pulled out my recorder, I would get these responses. And that's when I started, when I came home and I started researching researchers, and I came across Mike Patterson from Ontario, who has ongoing communications with a species or something that he calls Nephitia, and he has ongoing activity with it. And that's when I started communicating with Mike online and realized, he has this recordings and these things that happen. And I think other researchers might look at him and say, how is he getting this stuff? But it kind of resonated with me that I'm getting similar things. And I realized, just because we don't understand something doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
So do you think it's a possibility that maybe we're dealing with a being that is not really physical in that sense? I mean, going back to what I was saying earlier, that there's been no evidence, skeletal evidence found. Is it possible that this being is non-physical?
I feel like it's both. I mean, what do you think, Jenny?
I think it's a possibility, yes.
I think it's both, but I wouldn't really use the word interdimensional. I would use the word altered reality or quantum being. I would say quantum energy.
Okay. And so you've had more success when you said that you've gone in and sort of prayed? Is that what you were saying earlier?
Yeah, I'm I'm real in tune with communicating with energy outside of myself, which is I'll say when I pray, I'm praying not only to God or the universe. I call God the universe, but I pray to my parents too. And when someone passes away, you don't know what that energy is either. We don't know where that energy goes. And I'm not a religious person per se. I'm more a spiritual person where I believe that we're just energy. So everything around us is energy.
Right. Okay.
I absolutely agree with the everything around us is energy and how we interact, and that's sort of what we chatted a little bit about more, Jamie. The fact that frequency and how we sort of interact with it, with our body's own frequencies, and the fact that how it is tuned into again with the infrasound. Now, how do you think? If that's the case with this creature, if you will, Bigfoot, how has it been able to sort of elude detection for the most part, do you think?
I feel like it may elude us because humans are destructive, and I think that they know humans more than we know them. But, if you think of it on an energy level, it's possible that they can manipulate the environment around them to avoid us.
And also humans are easily distracted.
Yeah, we're easily distracted.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so if they... Okay, so let's sort of try to bring it down to bare bones, and let's just say, okay, so these creatures, known to many as Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti, whatever, where do they come from, do you think?
Where did they come from? It's possible that we've evolved, they've evolved alongside one another. They could be very similar to humans. They could be a tribe of people that, live in North America, live around the world where people are seeing them. They're very similar to us, I think. I think the intelligence level is very close to ours. They may have their own form of language and communication, or they may even communicate within infrasound. We don't know.
Or a conscious level.
Or in a conscious level, like consciousness.
But okay, if that's the case, then if we have evolved, how come how come they? Well, when we look at them and they sort of have a different evolution, if you will, than what we've had, because let's face it. Our evolution, if we look at it, or what we think we know about our evolution, you look at how we're fully clothed now, if you will. How is theirs? Why is theirs vastly different than ours then? If they've evolved.
I'm not sure I can answer that. I haven't really come across that in my research to say that I could answer that correctly.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I get it. Yeah.
I think that's a bigger unknown. I don't know. As far as bones too, you think about why haven't we? That's something that's always on my mind. But it's very possible that they bury their own, or, like you say interdimensional. I don't know. It's not really a word that I am comfortable using, but it's possible. I'm responsible enough to say I don't know.
Go ahead, Alex.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, everything I've said is just conjecture, obviously, because I've never really delved into it. Because I've heard this term thrown around along other theories and what have you, so I wanted to ask you for your opinion on these things. And you know what, it's much like the paranormal. We really don't have a full understanding. We can only hypothesize based on what we've experienced up until now, and even then, it could be wrong.
The exciting part to me is that science really is a guessing game in itself too. But there are scientists right now that are really looking into patterns that even within the paranormal community, where people are getting EVPs, you can ask intelligent questions and you get intelligent responses. Like, I can point to, Jenny and I were both volunteers at a place in Pennsylvania called Haunted Hillview Manor, where we were tour guides, but you learn a lot as a tour guide on how to investigate paranormally. And I remember, I was pointing at a word in a book, and I said to the, in this chapel, I said, "Can you tell me this word that I'm pointing at?" And on the recorder, it said the exact word that I was pointing at. So there's an intelligence within this dark energy that we don't know. And I say dark energy, I don't mean like it's negative energy. It's just an unknown energy.
That's the fun part of it all, right? Trying to understand. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right.
Because we don't know. Yeah, we don't know exactly where it comes from. We don't.
Harking back to, the experience I had again when we were doing some EVP work at that cemetery, and experiencing that sort of shriek, blood-curdling shriek, if you will, and not understanding, exactly what it was, other than that, okay, it's some sort of animal. What kind of animal? I can't, my mind's saying, well, what kind of animal could that possibly be to make that kind of noise and so far off? Because, it was definitely in the distance, because you could hear the echo, if you will. And that kind of led me down to believe that, okay, the possibility of it being, some sort of, Bigfoot type creature, or to that sort of scenario. As crazy as that might seem, that's a possibility, right?
It's a possibility, yeah. And it's responsible to think to yourself, I've never heard this before. I don't know what it is. It's okay to say that.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, did we lose out? Okay, you there, Alex?
I'm here.
Okay, I thought we lost you there for a second.
No, I was just gonna say, no. It's the intriguing part, like you said. It's right. I find it extremely intriguing to even just to delve into this sort of stuff. And I'm sure you guys get that experience all the time, right?
Yeah, and I look at it too, these people that look for Bigfoot, or they look for other cryptids or things that are outside of our senses. If they're looking at it on just a purely physical sense, they're kind of hitting a dead end. And in the Bigfoot world, I never realized this until I was further into my research, that there's people that truly love the science of it, and I love the science of it too, but there's another side of it that they call the woo, which has a negative connotation, meaning that it's wildly outside of the ordinary.
Oh yeah,
but
I've heard that.
To me, that's more fascinating. It's more fascinating.
Have you? I know I can speak more, obviously, from the paranormal side of it, and I'm sure Steve can speak to that as well. It is very hard to get people who are in the science community to take the paranormal aspect, obviously, seriously. Now, have you found the same with the Bigfoot community?
Well, you know what? I feel like the laws of attraction they work for me, because I think that the people that I align myself with are kind of like on the same page of openness, where if I'm showing patterns and I document all of my stuff on Instagram, and I find these patterns, and patterns are part of science, that you can get scientific minds to wrap themselves around it. And there are really interesting people out there that I've met, like the Center for Unexplained Events, Brian Seach in Pennsylvania, and his wife Terry Seach. They're into all the different mysteries. They're into the UFOs. They're into alien abduction. They're into all of these things, but they're looking at patterns. And it's just kind of interesting that I've met these people along the way, and I'm always asking and saying a prayer, take me to the right place or the right people that I need to be with, and it always takes me to the right place. Maybe even you right now with your Nocturnal Frequency. I love the name, by the way.
Thank you. A lot of people sort of go, well, Nocturnal Frequency, what's that? We know what that is. But, I mean, we always associated it with, frequency. Because, I mean, let's face it. I mean, the world would not run properly without frequency. And I wholeheartedly believe that frequency is something that, makes us, go around, if you will.
Everything has frequency.
It's an energy force. It's a force of energy, and energy never dies.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. We've always said that same thing too. We always say that energy just can neither be created or destroyed. So it just kind of alters, I guess, for lack of a better term, and just moves on.
It alters. Yeah, it moves on. Just like maybe how I think about my parents passing away. They've moved on. It's energy, but they're here.
Have you tried communicating directly with your parents? I mean, out of curiosity, I know it's a bit slightly off topic, because my parents have passed away too, and I've thought about doing it, but I haven't brought myself to doing it yet.
Well, in the whole process of all of this Bigfoot stuff, we went to a psychologist. It's actually Jenny's cousin, to talk about our experience. And, I was very depressed. So I was going through grief, and I went through grief counseling, and she told me, she said, we're born creators. So our minds create energy. And if you try to communicate with your parents, you truly can. And I started working with her and different groups of people that had similar experiences to myself. We called it the Free Thinkers, but it was a group of people that we got together and we would meet and talk about our experiences. Like, there was one lady that was abducted by aliens, another person that was into ghost hunting. And then, we started doing little field trips and experimenting with other things. So we experimented with this lady who had, she could trans-channel energy. So I was communicating with my parents in a trans-channeled way, and it was interesting, the things that came up.
Yeah, because it's things that she would not have known.
She would not have known, no.
Right. Maybe I should consider doing something similar then. And what do you? Okay, I don't want to get too off topic, obviously, but have you developed any sort of method, or do you know anything that would work better, I guess?
You mean like for you to communicate with your parents?
Or any deceased, or any entity for that matter.
I feel like our bodies, like as humans, we have a mind-body, we have a mind-heart communication. So I think that if you put yourself in a state of being where you're saying or you're thinking or you're praying with your heart, I think that energy, if you ask for a sign, you'll receive it.
Okay.
Whether it be, people want like direct communication with their parents. It may come through in signs, or it may come through in a way that is very personal. Like my family, when we said goodbye, we would never say goodbye. We always said toodaloo, because my family's like British. And I remember going to this psychic lady, and she said, the one thing that your mom wants you to hear is toodaloo. And I was like, I was like I went backwards in my seat. I was like, you're kidding me. And that is like one word that my mom would use.
Yeah.
Not just that.
Yeah, I guess you know, if you come across words are unique to then obviously that would be a sign.
I think we're losing you a little bit, Alex.
Are you?
Yeah, a little bit.
The audio was a little low there.
Oh, sorry. How about now?
Yeah, it's good now.
I was just saying that if you come across words that you know are distinct, then obviously that would be a good sign. But maybe I'll see if once this quarantine's over, if Steve and I can come and get together and just sort of do like a seance or something.
We're not that far. I mean, obviously from Pennsylvania, it's only 3 hours, if that, 3-4 hours, depending.
Yeah, you're not far.
No, not at all.
I would encourage people to experiment with sort of like psychic connection with energy. Why not?
Now, where do you see your research heading? Like, I mean, what do you ultimately want to sort of find, if not explain, or sort of convey?
Well, I think it's a hefty thing to say I'm going to find Bigfoot, but I think that I'm going to find answers that I need to find answers for. It's not necessarily for other people. It's more for myself, like how the universe works and how consciousness works. And I try to research on a level that's more of a conscious connection, where I don't know if I always fit in. It's more personal, but I don't always feel like I fit in with other researchers, where I do resonate with Mike and Leanne in Ontario. And I don't know why, but I really do appreciate their research, and I hope that they hear this maybe.
They may be listening. You never know.
Yeah, I hope they are.
Well.
Yeah. Well, we. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead, Jenny. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say we just kind of take it day by day, and whatever we find or whatever we come across, that's cool. Like we're really not expecting anything. I mean, it's not like we're demanding anything.
Mm-hmm.
We just kind of. You know what I mean? It's not like that. We just kind of go out there, and if we find something or we come across something, then we're like, thank you. Like we're grateful.
And
if we do come across something.
I think that's what I've always enjoyed about following, like I said, you on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot, how humble you guys seem to be and how much you share and enjoy the sort of adventures you guys are having, man, with not only Bigfoot, but the hikes and whatnot.
Yeah, we don't set limitations, and we don't. Like it's a challenge to say I'm gonna show proof of something that most people
like
don't
that.
even believe in.
Yeah, it's not like that. It's kind of I think if you kind of go out there with a childlike mind and just have fun with it, that's kind of a good way of going about it instead of being too serious.
Yeah, I mean, I always said, and again with researching the paranormal and investigating it, whatever, if you're too serious, I think things will fly over your head. The more important aspects of looking at this stuff, you really have to be very tentative and really pay attention. But at the same time, it's amazing the aspects that sort of unfold when you're just sort of enjoying yourself.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you're exactly right.
When you're out doing something, like what I it's funny. I was listening to the audio that you provided there, Jamie, and it kind of reminds me of something else I remember years ago listening to a friend of mine who he was doing an audio podcast of the investigations that they were doing, and one in particular was they were investigating a old farmhouse, an old abandoned farmhouse, and they were going in and investigating this farmhouse. And this farmhouse obviously was in the middle of nowhere. But what really struck me with the audio and listening to this was that everything that was captured during the recording, like the coyotes in the background, everything, and it sort of gives you a sense of being there, there with them, in that particular moment, in that particular experience. So it's sort of, that's what I gather from what you guys are sharing. You sort of invite people into that sort of environment, which is really cool, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And
I mean, I like to share with people that it's exciting just to be hiking, and I see a lightning bug. That's excitement for me. I'm not hiking.
Well,
yeah, you find like fluid, yes.
but what I enjoy though is yeah, exactly. You'll find the smallest little thing, whatever. But the thing is, you find stuff and you shared it, and to me, it's really cool. It's like, wow, that's really neat that you found something like that. I wish I would find something like that, or at least something similar. But it's really cool. And Jami, and Jenny, obviously, I really, really hope that I hope for the best, obviously, with your research with Bigfoot.
Yeah, thank you. I do too.
And you know what? I would like to invite you both back on as a part, because like I told you, Jami, I'd love to have a roundtable discussion on Bigfoot to sort of, find that common thread and sort of really dive into it. So I'd really love to have you guys back on the show.
I would love for you to have Mike and Leanne, and I would be there. That would be like a bucket list, really cool.
Absolutely. Like I said, if there's some way that we can sort of coordinate, whatever, I'd love to have them both on the show. Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, so if you want to send me their info, or if they're cool with that, I would reach out. I would love to have them both on. So that would be really cool. Until then, I want to thank you both for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And keep up the great work. I for one really enjoy the adventures you guys are sharing.
Oh, cool. Thank you. And good luck to your podcast here, too.
Thank you.
Before you go, can you give us the Instagram handle?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, your Instagram as well.
My Instagram is basically, it doesn't even really say Bigfoot. It's JAMI_JENNY. So it's just Jami and Jenny.
Okay.
You get it?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, guys. Thank you again for joining us, and we definitely look forward to having you guys both back on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care, guys.
Guys, take care.
Okay.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Be safe.
Bye-bye. Yeah, you guys stay safe. Bye. Yeah, it's cool. Like I said, I've been following Jami and his wife for years on Instagram and again on Facebook now. So it's really cool to have them on the show to talk about their adventures. And more importantly, Bigfoot. I mean, God, who does not like Bigfoot?
Yeah, well, it's something that's even more mysterious than the paranormal anyway, at least in my eyes.
Yeah, but the thought of having a Bigfoot experience. I mean, could you even think of anything in your lifetime coming close to having an experience with Bigfoot?
I can't.
No.
Have you listened to the Ohio Howl?
I did, yes.
That's pretty freaky.
It is freaky. It is.
Imagine like being in the forest or something and hearing that at night.
But that's what I mean. Imagine being, somewhere remote, and all of a sudden that comes across. You'd be like, what the, and you'd be out of there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to see if I can bring it up on my phone. I'm going to play it on. It probably won't sound that good. But
Okay, try it.
I'll try it now.
Okay.
Just turn the volume. Let me know if we can hear it. Hold on a sec. It's playing shortly. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
That's pretty freaky.
That is freaky, and I mean, you can hear the dogs reacting to it too, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
That's insane. Like I said, there was a few years ago that we were working in a cemetery and doing some EVP work, and this blood-curdling sort of howl came out of nowhere. And like I said, I have the recording, and when I eventually find it, I'll play it on the show. But it's just wow. To hear something like that, it just freaks you right out.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, to have an experience like that, even, to experience, something howling like that, that's just completely insane.
And as we were saying, I mean, it's like it almost like rattles your bones, sort of thing. You know what I mean? It gets to your bones when you hear a howl like that. I mean, I've heard coyotes howl. I've heard, this is going back to the days when I used to live on a farm. It was common when you hear coyotes howling. And, in and of itself, coyotes howling is pretty scary. But to hear something like this, I'd probably shit my pants.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that's an understatement, right? To deal with something like that is just... I don't want to say it's once in a lifetime experience. For most, it probably would be, but for some, it's like a common occurrence. And just imagine, for those... for that being a common occurrence, it's like, wow. It's like watching, TV on a regular basis and seeing the same show over and over again. So it becomes a normality. But to experience something like that is totally insane.
It is insane. It's one of those things that, it's like I said, I mean, there's so much on the paranormal nowadays because of TV shows and, paranormal groups everywhere. But you don't hear too much about Bigfoot. At least I don't. I can't speak for everybody else, but to be able to actually speak to someone who does this on a regular basis and goes out and tries to record these sounds is incredible, actually.
It is, and we're going to dive a lot more into it over the next few weeks. For sure, because I mean, it like I said, it's been something that we've sort of touched upon. We've had Lyle Blackburn on before to talk about the boggy river creature sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which is sort of a Bigfoot type creature, and he talks about Bigfoot. But we've never really dove seriously into it, and that's what I mean. Starting with Jami and his wife Jenny, who have been doing this for a long time, to possibly bring in on more researchers, and it's because there's so many researchers out there that have a different take on what Bigfoot possibly could be. Is it a physical creature? Is it a supernatural creature? Is it from a different realm, dimension? Is it an uncatalogued creature? You know, there's so many different aspects we could run with when it comes to Bigfoot, and I think there's something that I really look forward to sort of exploring in the coming weeks with Nocturnal Frequency Radio.
For sure, it'll be definitely interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
eye-opening.
Yeah, eye-opening and sort of, you know, different from what we've been doing. You know, sort of. Yeah. You know, talking about, you know, ghosts, if you will, to talking about Bigfoot or cryptozoologist sort of creatures that are completely unknown, and you know, you only hear stories about them and sort of bringing a reality to it, if you will, if there's such a thing, reality to these creatures. I mean, what is the reality? What is the reality of Bigfoot?
Oh, that's just a question we have to look into, right?
Yeah. We lost you. We lost the audio there for a sec.
Did you lose my audio, really?
Yeah.
I'm back.
Okay.
I was just gonna say that it is it's a unique mystery, because it's like I said earlier in the show, that because we haven't been able to find any evidence, any bones, or any sort of remains. I mean, I know what Jamie was saying is that one possibility is that they buried their own, but at some point, someone would have to have found something. And the fact that we didn't kind of, you know, just sort of makes you wonder. Are they actually from this realm or not?
Exactly. It just it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder. That's for sure. It makes you wonder.
I would love to be able to go out on one night and just sort of, you know, I'd have to have like a gun with me maybe, because I don't know if I'd be able to do that without it.
Well, there's
to hear something like that, you just like I said, would make me like crap my pants.
There was a researcher, a guy, a Bigfoot hunter, if you will, and I'm sure there's a few of them out there, especially down south of the border. But there was one guy that Greg Newkirk of Planet Weird and the Hellier series and all that kind of stuff had been in contact with down in I believe Western New York, who was a big proponent of bringing a gun with him on a hunt, because you never know, these things would attack you, so to speak. And I mean, wow. Let's face it. I mean, that's a possibility. But I mean, the fact is, do you need how do you justify bringing a gun and the cops show up, sort of thing?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, the laws here are very clear when it comes to gun ownership and whatnot. So if we were to bring a gun, we'd have a lot of explaining to do if the cops showed up, obviously, right? And I don't think using I'm protecting myself from Bigfoot as a reasonable excuse for having a gun on you, right? But nevertheless, I mean, to do something like this, I mean, if you go in the thick of a forest and all of a sudden you hear a howl like the one I played earlier, that's cause enough for anyone to just sort of like run. You know, just you don't want to take that chance. You know what I mean? Because you never know. It could be Bigfoot. It could be something else that's really meant to harm you.
True. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. And just having a little fun here with well, let's tell the listeners. You know what?
I think we should tell them.
Yeah, we're looking at exploring and possibly broadcasting simultaneously on YouTube.
Yep. So we're playing around with our cameras right now.
We're playing around with the cameras. We're sort of bringing a different dimension, and you know what? You guys will be sort of involved with that when we sort of get that going. Because I mean, look at. I think it's a whole new dimension with the show. Something we kind of flirted with live stream.
Yeah.
Although Frankie took the spotlight with that.
He did, and Frankie can make a comeback now.
Well, Frankie will make a comeback now with.
And just to be clear, this will be a simulcast, so we'll still be on New Visions Radio, but we'll be broadcasting simultaneously on YouTube as well.
Yeah,
and that's just a possibility. It all depends on whether we can get this to work.
Well, exactly. The main show will always be on New Visions right now. But like I said, visually, we're looking to sort of add that sort of different aspect dimension to the show via YouTube. And this, like I said, this coming week, we'll sort of work out the kinks, if you will. And if it works, it works. Then we'll let you know. If it doesn't, then don't worry. It was non-existent. It still is non-existent. But hopefully we could sort of bring a different dimension to your listening experience, if you will, with the TV show, with the radio show here on New Visions Radio Network. So that'll be pretty cool, man. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully that works out. I want to thank Jamie and his wife Jenny for joining us, stopping by and talking Bigfoot. We're definitely looking forward to talking more about Bigfoot, and in the coming weeks, hopefully we'll get something sort of worked out in that aspect. I want to, like I said, I want to have a round table sort of seriously discussing the different sort of venues when it comes to researching Bigfoot and trying to find a common thread and sort of looking into that common thread and what it could possibly mean in terms of what Bigfoot means and more, obviously. So that'll be pretty cool. I think that's pretty much it for now, Alex. Till next Sunday night. Like I said, we'll be working out a few kinks and possibly we'll be bringing you something a little different, entirely different next Sunday night. So keep checking in to our Facebook group for more updates on that. I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. And once again, Jamie and Jenny for being our guests this evening and sharing their experiences with, Bigfoot and all that. So, until next Sunday night, thank you for tuning in. You've listened to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. Take care, everyone. Have a good week.
Have a good night, everyone.
You are listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, hosted by Steve, Jenny, and